when I'm talking to clients about it, they're like, "Wow, you know," and it's so stupid. It's like I'm working on somebody's neck, and I'm like, yeah, you know, I just keep a rock in my dashboard. You know, I keep a rock on my dashboard.
The way
and every now and then I slam it, and so my knuckles are hard. So like, say I have to punch somebody in the face, it breaks their face, but instead of my hand, you know.
And it's pulling taffy or washing
taffy.
a woman's hair.
Welcome, everybody, to the Martial Mind Podcast. Today, we're filming episode 30, which is awesome. So happy to be here with you guys. So happy to be recording. Really proud of the journey that we've been on so far. Today, we're going to be talking about the comment section. We're going to be talking about keyboard warriors, and we're going to be talking about how to deal with it and how to kind of ignore it.
All enveloped into the podcast midlife crisis episode.
Yeah.
We're into.
I got
I'm
some
buying
back
a
pain.
Corvette.
As soon as we hit episode 30, immediate back pain. That's just where we're at now.
You start seeing age 30?
You start seeing how you can finance a Corvette so you can buy it at 38.
So firstly, we were talking before we were recording, and John and I came to the conclusion that we both know way too much about birds, apparently. And
Birds aren't real.
they're not real. They're robots. Just so you know, they're robots. They come from the ground, and they're controlled by the lizard people that are controlling the Democratic Party.
What are they, potatoes? We grow them.
They're drones.
We grow birds.
They're drones, Ryan. All right, they're drone. No, obviously they're not drones. But what's really interesting is that the peregrine falcon population in the United States was saved by importing a lot of them to New York City because the buildings being so tall and the pigeons being so stupid. Yeah, it's the perfect hunting grounds because the pigeon's flying along and the peregrine falcon literally dive bombs it, curls up its talons, and just fucking punches it. Hence
100% true story.
Hence the affirmation, not the affirmation, the aforementioned Falcon Punch. Right?
Super Smash Bros.
Falcon Punch.
That almost sounds as realistic as if you were to tell me the peregrine falcon would kill the bird by riding a similar sized bird into the other bird.
They see me rolling, they hate it.
Like, yeah, it punches it. It's like with
Dude, I saw a video the other day of a capybara riding a crocodile across a river. Just standing
Was it on
a
like someone's
crocodile's
lawn in
back.
like Australia? Oh, that's Ted.
Dude,
He pays taxes here. It's like,
All right, but
what?
anyway, so here's a video. This is not a dive bomb. This is a video of a peregrine falcon taking out a duck. Trigger warning, it's a little graphic.
So this is an execution. What do you?
This is actually a prairie falcon. Hang on one second. I got to start the screen recorder.
Same idea,
So
though.
where are these ducks?
They're
They're just like in a desert.
There are no ducks anymore. Boom.
Dude.
Jesus Christ.
Oh, that's like a flash.
He's dead. That's just nervous system stuff.
That's just getting deleted.
Yeah.
Oh,
Crazy to think about. But it's like stuff like that's why people made animal styles. They were like, look at that shit. That's crazy.
that's the fastest punch in the world. It's like 250 miles an hour, like that, and that you just get deleted. And that's all nervous
Yeah, man.
system reactions.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
That's wild.
But it's like at the same time, like, you know, you're watching. Imagine living back then, right, where there's no phones, there's no videos of anything, and you're just like, what's there to do today? Oh, I guess we should just go walk in the forest, you know. And you see a tiger, just maul something because it's going to be so much more impressive and so much more
Intimate?
Intimate, awe-inspiring. It's gonna be so much more awe-inspiring actually witnessing it in front of you, seeing a tiger move. I remember when I was
scariest thing.
I remember when I was a little kid. A little kid. There was one of those, like, it's gross that they do this, but I was 5, so don't come after me. Where we went to the mall and there was one of those things like pet a tiger, and you know this is like 1996, so there was no.
Where were you in, like a British colony in like
No,
1905?
the Huntington Square Mall. Pet a tiger. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, it was a cool trained tiger. It wasn't until years later I realized that, like, oh yeah, that tiger was like drugged, you know?
Sedated.
But like I specifically remember like petting this like enormous animal. It's just enormous, clearly drugged animal.
Yeah.
But like, dude, it was in the middle of a mall.
Yeah.
There's no safety regulations in the 90s. Nothing mattered.
Yeah.
I've never seen a
mattered.
They just
tiger.
like put it next to the sparrow. It's like no one's gonna be over there anyway.
Yeah, right near Abercrombie and Fitch, we got the tiger.
Yeah,
tiger
you got the
display.
tiger there.
You can go pet a tiger for 25 cents.
Dude, like the balding like mall owner with like a cigarette. It's like I don't care. Whatever. You know?
The Huntington
Good.
Square Mall was like a hot sauce store and like candles. You know what I mean? Those are the whole place.
Yeah. Well, since the Cinnabon closed down, we had to put something there.
Tchotchke things that said Long Island on them. A Long Island bottle opener.
Long Island
Which,
tiger.
Because
Here
of
you
the
go.
shape of Long Island, it actually makes a pretty good bottle opener. Just saying.
I Heart Brentwood t-shirts.
Could you imagine being the guy? Because now we laugh at it. Now we see like, I invented my own style when I was 16. I am the soke of my own system. And they start using like phrases from other cultures because it works. But it's like you're not anything. You made up your own thing. So call it your own thing, But then you also see that when it's like we had that video. I don't remember what it was. I think we brought it up in another episode where it was like it was an older guy and like a bulletproof vest for no reason, talking about how like regular martial arts will get you killed.
Yeah, rat or
and you
something
gotta
like
do,
that?
Yeah, you gotta do my rat self-defense system because that'll definitely help you. And it's like, dude, then you called it rat. Like, what are you doing? We're gonna get sued for this, but it's fine. We'll be tied up in litigation for 15 years before we get to any of our not money.
Are you trying to protect your friends and family? Do you like drinking out of random puddles in the subway? Well, get rat self-defense. Yeah. Do you like random piles of garbage?
You're not gonna fight like one of them pussy little field rats. You're gonna fight like a New York City rat.
Do you eat pizza that you find in the street? You are.
Do you
part
eat
of the
street
rat
pizza?
system.
You eat street slices?
But then it's literally like them, like, here's what you do with a gun, and then they just punch somebody in the eye with a gun. It's like, that's not how that works. I just want to let you know.
How'd you get that
You
close?
punch somebody in the eye with a gun, you accidentally hit the trigger, and then fucking blast their face. It's so stupid. But, my whole thing about being online, and I know we talk shit and we make jokes, but, like, it's not as bad as when you're in the comment section and people are literally trying to hurt your feelings. We're just joking around. But this all started where I was watching, the guys from Martial Club?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Martial Club is definitely a cool channel to watch, especially if you like traditional like kung fu cinema and like tricking and everything like that. Mm-hmm. They're really into all that stuff. So like all their stuff is very like 1970s Shaw Brothers kung fu cinema, and they've done a lot to it to make it more real. Mm-hmm. So he was in Shang-Chi. He's Andy Lee, the skinnier brother. Mm-hmm. Andy Lee, he was I forget the character, but he had the mask on the whole time. You don't actually see him. Okay. And him and his brother were just both in that movie with Michelle Yeoh. I haven't seen it yet.
The Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Everything Everywhere All at Once. Yeah, I have not seen it yet, but there's a lot of martial arts scenes, and they did a lot of choreographing, and they've been doing choreographing. There's videos of him doing choreography with choreography. There's videos of, I'm David Attenborough, and here we're going to be watching Ed do choreography. I've been drinking sherry since 9 o'clock in the morning.
I was making an omelet, and now I'm hammered.
You just like, where's David? You hear like pans dropping.
Stumbling.
He comes out of a cupboard. He goes, "Oopsie daisy!
I've been filming birds in the backyard."
Oopsie Derry! I found the sherry. And then he just like falls into a puddle.
I'm David Attenborough, and this is my golden retriever.
Tumbles over a bar stool.
He's had to introduce himself like that for the past 96 years.
Love
I'm
David
Attenborough.
Just the idea of him like you don't keep him supervised, and then he's just drunk off of cooking wine.
He won't die until we find all the animals. Until every animal species has been identified, then he's allowed to pass away. Until then, he'll still be on this earth filming shit.
Yeah, once we find
I love David Attenborough. He's like
once we rediscover the dodo bird, he just passes away.
Yeah,
he just.
And how amazing is it that there's still a dodo bird? They're just gone. But anyway, so then his brother Brandon he's muscular. He's like the big guy, right?
In Martial Club, right?
Yeah, in Martial Club, and he puts a lot of videos up of him practicing hand techniques. Now these guys, they've put videos on their YouTube channel, them like sparring each other and stuff like that. And they definitely, I'm sure they would put up a fight. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I'm sure they would put up a fight. But everybody likes to I'm seeing all these people in the comment section about how like, oh, it wouldn't work in the street, wouldn't work in the cage. If you're so badass, why aren't you signing yourself up for a fight? Why don't you fight professionally? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? It's like,
It's not required.
it's not required. What's the point? Why? Just being a martial artist and understanding how to fight does not mean that you suddenly have to fight professionally.
And also, what underground fight ring is that comment writer running?
Yeah.
Right.
Also, oh, you work at PC Richard and Sons.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not exactly. It's not exactly like Dustin Poirier was like commenting on that. Like, come step into the octagon, brother.
Come here, bitch.
And that's how it would be. If any of those actual fighters were to be in the comment section, they'd be like, bro, your technique looks good. You should come fight. Yeah. Not like fucking. No, that technique, because you know what it is. It's all jealousy. That's all it is. It's all jealousy. You see people practicing and you see people training and doing something that you think you can't do, or that you do but do poorly.
Yeah.
Or I'm just trying to find my own way. Well, your way's wrong.
Yeah.
So what does that even mean? Because I saw that in the comment section too. Like people coming back and being like, find your own way. Break away from the traditional stuff. It doesn't work.
But listen to me though.
And it's like yeah, but listen to you. But who the fuck are you?
Yeah.
So it's like it's now. Part of it is also we know that eventually this is going to keep growing and growing and growing, and we're going to have to deal with those comments, which we haven't yet. I mean, I've dealt with a lot of comments of people in my life who like to talk smack about Kung Fu and who like to talk about what I do and wonder, like, how come you haven't fought? How come you haven't this? And how come you haven't that? And I spent a while thinking that, like, we together, like, we gotta fight. We gotta get some fights in. And it's like, but do we though? Because that's the world that you step into. You don't dabble in the professional fight world. You give up all the other things that you're working on because that needs to be your focus. Because what's the point of stepping into a ring with somebody who's going to try to give you brain damage if you're not planning on making that your career or making something out of yourself there? So at that point, it's the satiation of your ego.
Yeah.
If you're
not all in, there's no point in doing that because the risk is too great.
Right. And don't get me wrong. There's benefits to hard sparring, but the benefits of hard sparring is exactly the same as stepping into the cage or the ring once or twice. Unless you're going to make something out of it, what's the point in doing it? I don't really see it. Tournaments and competing, it's great. Yeah. There's reasons for it. There's places to do it, but it's not the end-all be-all. And just because somebody has opted not to fight professionally or has not yet fought professionally, because you never know, like, what's the sake in talking smack to them about it? I don't see the point. The internet is full of the quote-unquote keyboard warriors. The internet is full of people who like to talk smack or who think that think who they are. Yeah.
Armchair quarterbacks.
They can do 225 for reps with their index fingers. It's basically what it.
Yeah.
It's just like, please.
Well, I mean, the point that I'm trying to make is, like, we know how much of a killer our teacher is. We know. We've seen it. And we've seen people on the internet talk smack about the school. So nobody is safe. Nobody's safe.
It's really ridiculous, man, because, like, I've mentioned this in prior episodes too, is that martial arts and, like, combat sports in general, it's like the one skill that people are so easy to claim false ownership over. It's so easy for a keyboard warrior to say, like, oh, this is the wrong way of doing things. You should do this instead, and like blah blah, and like offer up criticisms where it's not wanted without ever getting onto the mat. So it's bizarre how people can so easily do that without ever even hitting the heavy bag.
It's exclusively with fighting. I find, like, you don't see me like across the street from like a Mavis Discount Tire, and I just go no, and I just walk over, and I'm just like, what are you doing there, bud? That's all wrong.
That's not how you use an impact gun.
Can you get the fuck out of here?
You're taking somebody's wheels off. You gotta start with this one, then this one, not this one, then this one. What are you, crazy? Like,
no. I'm just saying all. You gotta fill that with whipped cream. Like, I'm just saying all sorts of
absolute nonsense. Yeah. Like, it blows my mind.
You're not gonna check those wheels with a torque wrench? You're just gonna zip them on?
Dude, I will never ever forget this interaction I had once. I was out at the bar one time with a couple buddies.
How do you got my attention by touching my elbow?
I just need to
just
acknowledge
to make sure that you're
there
there and that you're safe.
I'm like, listen, this is important because this is an absolutely ridiculous, like, people will be up to their neck in bullshit and not realize it. Like, there's this girl that I met one time that was like, like, we were just talking, having a fun conversation. Like, I literally talking about, I think, astrology and like the star formations and shit like that. And she was like, would you fight me? And I was like, no. She's like a 5'1", like 110 pounds soaking wet like
Fight
woman, and I'm
requires equal opponents.
And with any fight training, does she train fighting at all?
it's obvious she didn't. She was like, "Oh, my dad's a Golden Glove boxer, and he taught me that the proper way to punch is like this." And I'm like, "That is a great way to break your thumbs." I'm like, "That is not at all. This is not real. This is not how you punch anybody."
That's bullshit. My dad was a Golden Glove boxer. Where?
And he said to do this. No, he didn't. Because if he was, he wouldn't.
But also, what does that mean?
Yeah.
How does that like that's just a disconnect of thinking that like how does that transfer over to
My
you?
dad's a cop, which means I get to shoot you.
Yeah, I'm going to arrest you now.
And I asked her, like, have you, like, are you, like, combat sports something you're interested in? Have you trained? And that was her response. Was like, no, my dad's a Golden Glove boxer.
I got it.
And
my dad's got it.
So you're just, what is the word?
Riding the coattails,
Vicariously claiming ownership over your dad's past experience, which, I mean, if he told you to do this, that man wasn't a boxer.
But also, so your dad's trained for both of you. That must have been very hard training if he's trained for multiple people.
Yeah, you must have sweat a lot,
you know, if you're only ever training, nothing against boxers, but like if you're only ever training for a sport where you're wrapped up and then you're wrapped up in gloves, you know what I mean? Like you're never training to actually hit stuff. We all know my knuckle rock.
Oh yeah, knuckle rock's a real thing.
My knuckle rock that lives in my car, and it's like I feel so stupid sometimes because like I'm a massage therapist. You know what I mean? I'm not like back when I was a mechanic and I was working on trucks and cars. Like I guess it would be different to like talk a big game, but like I hit my knuckles on rocks to make them harder so I can fucking kill.
Look at
people,
this shit.
You know?
Look at it.
But like, nevertheless. When I'm talking to clients about it, they're like, "Wow, you know," and it's so stupid. It's like I'm working on somebody's neck, and I'm like, yeah, you know, I just keep a rock in my dashboard. You know, I keep a rock on my dashboard. The way every now and then I slam it, and so my knuckles are hard. So like, say I have to punch somebody in the face, it breaks their face instead of my hand. You know,
it's pulling taffy or washing a woman's hair.
I'm working on somebody's strap right now.
The economy's tough right now. I'm doing other services as well.
Working on your neck.
I also love the way that you said "wow" made it sound like you were talking to like a mom and you were 5 and you like found the rock. You were like, "Look," and they were like, "Cool."
That's also how I feel when I talk to people about things because they don't.
Kung Fu is your rock.
Well, because it's like
look at my rock. Talk
to a regular person about it. Being like, yeah, so I learned a new sword form today.
Well, if you say it like that.
Well, that's the thing. Like Seagung has talked about.
I feel like
this.
Star Wars kid. You know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let Star Wars kid. But Seagung's talked about it in the past to us. He's like, yeah, people don't think that martial arts is for adults. They think martial arts is for kids. So you tell somebody like you're working on a form or you're training. They're like, oh, what are you training for? A new position? And it's like, no, just like martial arts. You know, like I'm working.
We train for life.
I wonder.
Merch plug.
I wonder too, because it's very similar to, or kind of a parallel thought to like something that Faraz Sahabi talked about, where he talked about how, you know. This is not the actual point I'm going to make, but just to intro his point, how he was talking about how, you know, with other sports, there are specific body types that are good for certain things. He's like, but with fighting, he's like, there's, you know, fighting is something that's innate in all human beings. He's like, so like, there's not like one amazing body type for fighting. He's like, you know, you can max
the best at what you
got.
Yeah,
you can. Yeah. It's you can definitely max compared to like baseball, where like, hey, if you don't have arms, it could be difficult. But
yeah, well, dude, I'm not gonna lie. I worked in a baseball event where it was a little league event, and there was a pitcher. Their starting pitcher had one arm.
Oh, well, I mean, I guess that's the really only position you could play.
Yeah,
like outfield.
He would keep his glove tucked under his nub, you know, because he had half of an arm. So his glove would be there. He would throw the ball and put the glove on. And it was unbelievable. One of the coolest things I've ever seen.
Yeah, that's great. You know, we had a. Did he make it to Black Sash? We've talked about him before.
Who?
I know, but we're not saying names.
Is it that guy?
That guy?
No. But there was a gentleman that trained at the school for a while that had
a
malformed hand. Yeah. That he only had like 2 fingers on it, so like he had to. All like the double weapon forms he couldn't do. He had to make it work with the hand, with the hand that he had. But at the same time, he developed that hand into a weapon because he could still hit you with it. Yeah. And Sifu Lloyd loves to tell it. I think he mentioned on the episode how like if you got hit with that hand, you got fucked.
He was one of the best fighters that Shirjar Moses like ever produced. Was him.
Right. To your point too, that there's no optimal body type. They're just different. It's a sliding scale. But
totally.
But for you to, I want to hear the rest
of
that.
No worries. But I think to that point, I wonder maybe if, like, since fighting is something that is maybe genetically not foreign to everybody, maybe that's why I think people have more of a
something to say about it?
More so, as opposed to like when I watch baseball, I'm not like, what a fucking idiot. Like if you because
how he swings the bat.
Right, because that's like because there's a detachment there where I feel like fighting.
I can swing a bat better than that.
Yeah, where like fighting is something that is so built into us, as opposed to like God's not like, oh, will to survive, fight or flight, baseball. Like it's not like Cracker Jacks, like
staying in the zone.
Yeah. Wait to get called in to run home. Like none of that's there. But like fighting in that fight for survival, like that's a core piece of like what makes us human. So I feel like maybe that's why people are so like, because again, you'll watch that when people watch UFC, they'll watch UFC, they're like, oh, come on, bro, just stand up, or like, just come on, dude. Like such a detachment from like how anything works with any form of combat. It's like with any of it, it's like, dude, it's like, or same thing like even with you ever see that video? Sorry, John, you ever see that video of the there was a video of a boxing coach runs a gym, like a boxing gym, and this poor dude came in and was like, yeah, I want to fight you, I want to fight the coach, and he was like, all right, bro, he's like, let's do it, let's work. And then, dude, he beat the shit out of this guy from one end of the ring. But at one point, he's like, I'll let you hit me. I'm not going to hit you. I'll just move. Hit me. And it was just like, you watch this guy, and like the way that he throws, the way that he moves, the way that his face and chin is exposed, his hands are down, the way he's square when he's approaching his opponent. It's just like, it's kind of sad, like the level of delusion where like, even when he was hitting, it was just like, it was like punching in a dream. Yeah. It was just like, and then he would just go to town on this guy. Because again, that's the thing that people don't understand is like, and this is kind of how in the realm that our teachers were kind of raised in that type of environment was like, listen, if you're in like a close-knit martial arts community, especially traditional martial arts community, if you talk shit about people, like they'll just show up at your school and be like, hey, let's spar in front of your students and figure this out. Right. And then like if they don't, be like, hey, your teacher's a bitch, so bye, like see you later.
It's a literal thing that happens.
Yeah, but that type of like shit talking was just like, and people calling you out on the shit that you're talking, be like, hey, so now I'm here. So now we can talk about it and we can figure it out.
There's a difference between misspeaking or, you know what I mean?
Or
like accidentally saying the wrong thing or like not knowing who you're talking about and like maybe having the wrong idea and then just like
knowingly,
blatantly just talking
misrepresenting people
because you're trying to like look big in the moment.
Completely detached from reality, fantasy world. Yep. Those UFC, those guys that watch UFC and are just like, just get up, man. If I would hit him as hard as I can.
Before it dies.
Okay, sure.
Sorry.
No problem.
It's all good. Just don't do it again.
Let me sit back down and then.
Yeah, you got these guys that watch UFC and they're like, on their couches, like, yeah, man, just like get up. Like, why don't you just punch him in the face? Like, have you tried punching him in the face? And it's like the 7th round.
It's like, oh my God, I didn't think about that.
Or if it's a boxing match, you probably get the 7 rounds. Not a lot of 7 rounds. I mean,
no.
Am I the only person that this has happened to where like somebody? And you just started training too, so I mean, like you've been training for three. Yeah,
it'll be 3 years in January.
But that realm of training, especially, is where like I found the most shit talking happening.
Oh my God, the first 5 years, you don't know what you're doing, and then,
you don't know how to articulate stuff. You don't have a well-rounded understanding of like what you're doing yet.
You're really a babe in the woods. I mean, like, and like we still are.
Oh yeah, we still are. We just have a better handle on like what we know and what we don't know and what the whole system kind of a better just handle on kind of what we're learning about as opposed to like what we know, if that makes
100%.
sense.
No, absolutely. But the thing about it is that like people are going to hear that you're training and judge that you're training and be like, he's doing this like 6 months already, he doesn't have his shit together, and they have done nothing, and they see guys like they see these shredded fighters and they think that it's not this like unbelievable achievement, the things that they do and they go through, and it's like it's their whole life,
dude.
It's their whole life. It's all they do. And even then, you've never even been in that situation. Like, so how many times, and if this has happened to either of you guys, like, have you been like training and somebody talks shit to you about what you need to work on and is trying to tell you that like what you're doing might not be great because you're not great yet, and it's like,
yeah, I mean,
fuck you.
At this point, like you guys said, at this point in
I really tell fuck you to people way too quickly, though. Like, that's really a problem that's been coming up.
It's a root of Ed's personal growth, is saying fuck you less quickly to people, passerbys.
Ed's a hothead.
Hey, fuck you.
In the frame.
I've only been doing this about 3 years, so I'm still just at the point of putting the work in, like...
You're always putting the work in, but I mean, like, you've made such strides. you've come so far.
Yeah.
Your movement is so much better, and it's getting there. And it's like, I yell at you about stuff in class every time. Every time I work with John, I fucking give him shit. But that's because I love him, because that's what you do when you're teaching a class or when you're assisting teaching a class, you know? So oftentimes in the intermediate class, it's like I get to train with everybody for an hour, and then like I get passed off to a group and get to work with a group, and I often get passed off to your group.
Sorry. Were you gonna say something?
Well, yeah. And so, you know, but I was gonna make that point as well, that like, yeah, where I am now is different from when I started. You know, and that's just the arc of my progress is running at this pace, you know, and that's really the best that anyone can do is just put the work in, and you know, the results come when they come, you know, as long as you keep working. And someone said to me recently that, like, you know, he's seen videos of me and my footwork looks like shit, and like he's like, I'm amazed that nobody's tried to correct your footwork. And I was like, I work on footwork every time I train. You know, like every time I get on the mat, it's a complete thing. You know, you're not just training hands separate from feet. It's all together. You know,
and it takes time. It takes time for your nervous system to get a handle on what you're doing.
Right, and like for somebody to make that statement just means that they don't understand. You know, because I'm surprised nobody has worked on your footwork with you. It's like, well, I'm putting the work in, and footwork is part of that work.
That's such a loaded statement.
Yeah, dude, it's taken me a decade to develop my footwork, and I still need a lot of work.
Dude,
still need a lot of work.
Yeah.
You know, like even just like last year, or over the summer. Over the summer, we were fighting, and I was like, dude, I still feel like cemented into the floor.
Yeah.
And Sifu gave me some tips on how to stay lighter on my feet, and then I had to just work on it for a while. And there's footwork. Footwork also requires a certain amount of strength in your ankles, calves, and feet.
Dude,
that like you need to develop through very painful and arduous, tedious exercises.
Once you start working those muscles, you're
And
like, I have muscles down there.
And you've been dealing with plantar fasciitis for the past like 6 months.
It's been bad the last like 3 or 4 weeks. It's been pretty bad.
It's been bad for the last few weeks, but you've been dealing with it.
Yeah,
and it was the ankle before that, the calf before that, the knee before that,
the back,
and the start of everything was the back.
Yeah,
because this whole relationship started when I was working on John. John came in as a client. You know what I mean? He trained for like a month, and we were like just starting to hang out again. And I kind of keep my distance from people when they first start training, because he had like just come back into my life, and I get really attached to people, so I care, you know? I got a big old ginger heart. And
that guinea heart.
But I also apparently tell people to fuck themselves like really
It's
easy
a multifaceted heart.
You know what I mean?
He's a really great guy, but he'll tell you to go fuck yourself.
Well, you know what? At least you know I'm being honest with you.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? You always know how I feel.
Yeah.
If he loves you or tells you to go fuck yourself, he means it.
It's way better than somebody who lies about liking you.
Tell you to go fuck yourself.
Also true.
Yes.
Yeah, it's way better than somebody who lies about liking you.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah.
But again, you know, like I wasn't getting too close, and then John was having back pain, and I brought my table right here. It would have been right in front of the camera.
But we were already training when I.
No, but I'm saying, but like that also started us hanging out more, and then we were training in the back more, and then we, you know, our friendship reignited through COVID. That was during the pandemic.
Yeah.
My COVID buddy.
And then I remember I came over here and you were like, wait a minute, I can take class online? And I'm like, yeah, dude, I've been training kids on Zoom for like a month. And you're like, oh, fuck. And then you started taking class online again.
Yeah.
You know? And here we are. But even then, how are you supposed to have, you know, Adesanya style footwork? I know he just lost, but still.
Yeah, still amazing fighter.
Yeah, how are you supposed to have, like, you know, expert professional level footwork, you know, 15 years, 20 years of training type footwork when you've been, you know, A, training for like 3 years, and B, you're training through all these injuries and slowly figuring out how to put your body back together and be in the kind of shape that you need. I'm surprised. Like, whoever said that can eat a dick. Like, I'm surprised they haven't worked on you with your footwork. All I fucking yell at you about is to literally the two things I tell John all the time is get your back heel up, point your back knee forward, and take this hand from here and bring it up here so you can protect yourself.
I protect my nipples a lot. For
my nipples are safe.
My key thing that I say to John in class, I'm like, John, you got nipple armor again, and he's like, oh shit, nipple armor, John, no nipple armor.
And like John's just running at someone like this.
Because I curse way too much, and it's like, okay,
let's go, bro.
It's okay on the show.
I'm ready.
But Seung is funny. He'll be like, I'm the only one that's allowed to have potty mouth in this school, because like I'll literally be like, that looked like shit. Fucking do it again. And then he's like, stop cursing in the class.
It's like cigarette is just growing in his. It's like
I quit. I
like,
quit smoking.
That's like Ed's Pinocchio nose, but with cursing. Every time he curses in class, just the cigarette grows back. Just
Yeah.
You fucking piece of. Look at those kids outside. Where are they from?
Where are they
Yeah,
get
there's
off?
It's like a skeptical.
I get more and more angry. I open my bag. There's like a Newport pack with like one cigarette in it, and I like that's not there. And then I go back.
found
I
out
get
like
angry
this.
again. I come back. There's like 3 cigarettes, and they're like, "What's happening? What's going on?"
It's just the reverse of like the picture from Back to the Future. You're just gaining cigarettes as it's going. Oh no. But with that though, like you think about like because some people would think clearly it's like like whoever said that like it's like they don't realize, and again this speaks to the thing of like how people will just say shit, but they're not realizing how much of a loaded statement that is. Like because like when I hear that, right, someone saying, "Oh, I'm surprised people haven't worked with you on your footwork." Well, that implies a few things immediately. First thing, that implies that you know what good footwork looks like and you know what bad footwork looks like, which means that you've been training.
My response to that is put gloves on.
Right.
Let's put gloves on.
So that means that then also it means that he knows what your experience level is and where you should be based off your level of training and knows what 3 years of training is like and what you should be getting out of it, which he doesn't have. Right. Then on top of that, he's also saying that the people instructing you are not good. So it's like from people
right, so we can take him down to the school on a Friday night and pass him around like a prison bitch.
Whoa.
I was gonna say, or you could just avoid him, or we could.
Should I say pass him around like a pack of Newports? Is that better?
I mean, both are prison related, so I don't really know.
I don't think they have Newports in prison. I'm pretty sure it's res cigarettes only.
I mean, they have like fucking iPhones in
They
prison.
have tomahawks in prison. If you never smoked, you don't know what I'm talking about.
But from people that are kind of like, you know, I don't want to say in like the fighting culture because we're not like professional fighters, but just in that like traditional hardcore martial arts space, it's like to hear people like you would like people who have been punched in the face, who have a general idea of combat and what goes into it and have been trained properly would never talk like that.
No.
So
never.
it's like it's almost like when you hear someone like they're trying to someone who is trying to act like they know about cars. And they're like, "Oh, where's the that have the new flux capacitor in it?" And you're like, and you're just like, you just shake your head. You're like, dude,
telling people about headlight fluid and shit.
headlight fluid. Yeah, headlight fluid's a little.
Yeah, headlight fluid's
the
a little
pressure
low
in your
there.
bulbs is off.
Dude, headlight fluid is like that is the best.
The best
Yeah, your headlight
thing.
fluid's a little low.
Yeah, man, and everybody's got to walk their path with training, and like it's not a straight line forward.
No,
and that kind of statement comes from somebody who's never walked the path. You know, because like,
that's why
everybody
you just shake your head at it. You're just like, all right.
yeah, it's just like
It's so far beyond.
Yeah, because like I have to work with what I have, and I have to put the work in. So like, you know, personally with me, like you guys said, I was overcoming some injuries, but I was still working. I was still putting the training in.
And that's the thing too is that again, it's like and we all know from training, like footwork especially, how hard it is to get good at properly doing and improving your footwork for fighting. It is so difficult. So like for someone to say that,
I blew out my right ankle working on it. I blew out my right ankle. I had to take a break because I was overdoing it with trying to make my footwork better. Like it's not it's
incredibly
something
difficult
to shake a stick at. You know what I mean?
It's
And you don't get good at it in 6 weeks. You know.
No, you don't get good at it in 6 years either. And that's what people don't understand. You know, there's a certain heart to them. I mean, I know I talk shit, but like I sometimes I feel bad about my sense of humor. Like I say dirty jokes and then I immediately feel guilty about them.
Oh.
You know, I'm like, oh my God, that just come out of my mouth. But yeah, you know what? It was funny when I said it. So like, whatever. But
the police are like, you can't keep saying that.
yeah, like,
It would come out funny when I said it.
he said I could stab him.
We need to take you
I'm
out of the movie
allowed
theater.
to.
Come with me.
He said I could stab him.
He said he
I'm allowed to.
He said he wondered what it would be like. So I just
I
did
got a
it,
note
right?
from the doctor.
I went up
like,
to him
what?
like, hey man, can you do me a favor? Hold my knife. Thank you.
Well, it's like, you know, but again, we're constantly growing and evolving, and it is what it is. It's like you know, like I curse somebody out because they piss me off in public, and then nothing comes of it. But then I think to myself, I shouldn't be like this. I should have more control, you know. Or
But you're human.
yeah,
It's stuff you're working. It's stuff you're working on.
Yeah.
Stuff you're working on.
It's stuff. It's definitely stuff I'm working on. Like the sudden jumps to anger and the like not being afraid of who's around. I'm like, fucking let me at him. The scrappy dooness that I have sometimes.
Scrappy doo.
You know, it's
Someone's holding you.
Yeah. Well, because
It's this big.
Because if I was ever that way around my teachers, they would just be like, you know, and put me right back in my place, and I know that.
I mean, yeah, that's
and so this is why I like to reference back, you know, calm myself. I'm not perfect. None of us are perfect, and that's the other thing I think people that they have this Hollywood idea of what it means to be a certain individual, and like You can't have any flaws. You can't make any mistakes. You have to be absolutely perfect in everything that you put up. And again, this really only happens in martial arts when it comes to like videos and social media and the comment section like we were talking about in the first place. Like, when did you ever see a fat guy, let's say he's a really, really, really overweight individual who's putting up videos of them in the gym and their workouts don't look great, but they're working out? Everybody's like, what a hero. Champion. What a brave person to put this online. But then you do the same thing. I'm learning martial arts. This looks like shit, but look at me practicing. They're all like, who's fucking teaching you? Yeah. You can't throw punches like that. Leave your elbows down. What's the matter with you? What the fuck is the problem with you? I could take you on.
All of a sudden,
you don't fight professionally? And then you start getting stronger and better, and you're putting up more videos of technique because you're proud of your progress, and you train because you love training. Not because you want to be a professional fighter, but you just train because you love training and you love martial arts and you love your improvement and you're just sharing it with the world. And then somebody gets in the comment section and just tries to tear you down. You look at videos of them doing forms and they can't see their toes.
There are none. There are no videos of them doing forms.
That's the other thing too.
Those people don't train.
No. Sometimes there are. Sometimes
they're not good.
There are. Sometimes there are.
They just sit. Anytime someone sees you do martial arts, they just immediately get like a boxing trainer white towel around their shoulders.
Yeah,
like, what is this shit?
Yeah, the cut man's already there. Like
there was a guy. I saw a guy post a reaction video to somebody who was doing like instructions on a bag. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And the bag work looked really good. Looked excellent. It was great technique. And then the guy posts like a stitch video, you know, like this is how you should be doing this exercise. And the guy's like 300 pounds. He's all just like you know that giant like hard old man belly that looks like it's like there's bread in there.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It's per man frost.
Yeah,
it's like huge and hard and then flabby on the bottom.
There's cheese aging inside his belly. There's just wheels of cheese.
Just a wheel of Parmigiano Reggiano.
Yeah,
my stomach.
It'll be.
My
done.
stomach cheese is insured.
The couple rules hidden there too. You know, a little gobble.
I'm David Attenborough, and here we see the elderly American gentleman aging cheese inside his abdomen.
Oopsie dairy, I found the shirt. It's just all over his shirt.
Okay.
He's such a mess.
Looks like somebody's hankering for a spankerin'.
But here's the thing. That guy is living in such a fantasy land because he's never been smacked around. You know what I mean? He's never been smacked around. And could you imagine how bad I would be have I not been training for the past 10 years? And how bad I was in the past? Ryan knows old me, which is like, I'm not saying like I was a scumbag or a piece of shit, but like, You get the Robert De Niro face. Like,
say, dude, we went to high school together.
Yeah. But I wasn't as bad in high school. It was It was my 20s.
Yeah.
It was my 20s.
Because you're pretty awful then too.
High school, I was cool. I was kind of a bitch. You know, I really didn't do much. I didn't speak out. I was very reserved and scared. And then in my 20s, like life just kept beating me up and beating me up and beating me up and beating me up, and I just had a lot of anger. And now that anger, it's still in there, and it's something that like the fire gets lit like real fast, and I'm getting better at seeing it happen because I used to just let it come out and be like, nothing's gonna come of it anyway. But now that I'm getting older and wiser, I realize that might not always be the case. Yeah. I really need to reel this in and not let myself be the person that gets shot in traffic because I fucking decide that somebody cut me off to fucking lean my head over and they'd be like, "Hey, you mother!"
Yeah.
You know, I need to be better than that.
Yeah.
Because as martial artists, we have, and I'm trying to be vulnerable here. Like it's just I'm not comfortable discussing this.
Yeah,
but
we're gonna use all this against you, but keep going.
I'm just not comfortable sitting next to you.
Ooh. Yes, you are.
Yeah,
you're actually a little aroused. I can tell.
I just gotta hide my erection.
Well, now I have.
No, thank you.
What was the first thing you thought he was going to do?
I didn't know. That it was the fear of the unknown.
This is why he's uncomfortable.
There's a presence approaching me.
John just turned from a man to a small dog at the vet. No! Everything's cold and scary. Where are your hands going?
That's just me at the doctor.
Ed goes to the vet.
I don't have insurance.
It's just shaking on a table. Just
our country does not provide health care. I got to go somewhere. Okay?
How do you think he's so well groomed? He's
Well, what is this?
It's just.
I literally looked in the mirror today. I was like, "Fuck shaving. I'm not doing that." Well groomed.
Just cut to Ed being like cleaned by a woman in scrubs. Ed's just going. As they're cutting his nails.
Listen, I told you not to talk on the show about what Jenny and I do in the bedroom. All right.
No, I'm a
Now you're
scared. I'm a scared dog.
Ooh, I felt that in my mustache. Ooh.
But still, like to continue the point, I'm trying so hard to be better every single day, and it's that 1% better all the time. And sometimes those moments happen where I realize like, oh, didn't handle that situation very well, and then I do feel guilty about it and bad about it. But then I have programmed myself now through training and through everything else to then go back to the drawing board. Like that means I need to go back to the drawing board and I need to look inside myself and see where this is coming from, and then change that behavior. And also, just never go back to where I was.
I think a good point
never
too.
Go back there.
To kind of what you're saying is also, I think it's important to I think it's important to not get it mixed up where with 1% better in the sense of like sometimes progress isn't also in a medicine. It's not a straight line, but it's progress. Also, doesn't always mean in the medicine a step forward either. You know what I mean? Because also you think. What little perspective?
Can you say that again?
Like progress in like a grand scheme sense when you look at your whole lifeline. Progress isn't always physically moving forward in the sense of how you actually progress over time. Because you think about if you never fucked up, how weak and such little perspective you would have on your darker parts, or what not a well-rounded, if you never had, same thing with never having struggle. You know what I mean? But what I'm saying is that it's like. You could think of it as today I did good, today I didn't do good. Tomorrow I did good, but this day I moved backwards. It's no, it's on the grand scheme, what did you learn from that fuck up? And that in itself is a lesson. So it's more perspective, I think, also in the sense of if you keep your perspective strong and then not allow the small bumping into coffee tables moving forward to move you back, then that's growth every day also, if that makes sense. I think it's the mindset along with the action, I think, is super important. But just something I was thinking.
No, yeah, absolutely. And it's been coming up a lot lately, so it's clearly something. And I find that a lot too. When there's something you've been working on, it tends to come up and come out a lot.
It's what your brain is focused on. It's what you focus. Exactly. It's strange how it manifests.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying, it's been a lot of things recently where I'm I got to reel in the anger things because it also leads to other stuff that I'm not comfortable talking about. But still, it's things that you work through, things that you have to. Things that you have to get through, and you look at yourself and you're like, I am not this person. I am reacting to what I'm feeling, and I'm being controlled by my emotions right now. And I need to be in control. Yeah. But then also I myself do this a lot. I waste time getting depressed about fucking up, and then
same.
And then sitting there. But you don't want to do that. Same. And this is also why I like referencing these, thought leaders of the past, and I've been really into Miyamoto Musashi lately. And here are some things. So now, just to preface, the Book of Five Rings, we talk about it a lot. It's a martial strategy book. Okay, it is a book about how to approach. It's not a book about his martial art. It's not like when you look at written out forms and there's rows of movements and how to do and all that stuff. It's not that. It was a book written in a way for his students to understand how to mentally approach the martial art, right? Things that you miss out on by not being in class. Because you know how, you'll be in class, you see the videos of class, we're hitting bags, we're doing techniques, we're doing that. There's no videos of the life lessons that Sifu puts on us, or the fathering that Qigong gives us all,
the talks.
The talks. That's for us, that's between teacher and student. And now we're taking these lessons and we're giving them to you. Welcome to episode 30 of the Martial Mind Podcast. But this book, in a way, feels like it was him knowing that his life was nearing its end, and he wanted to be able to have a written record of the morality and the thought process behind the strategy as well. The strategy, the thought process, how you should approach using the martial art tactically, and then that also can then be translated to how to approach your life, right? So here's a couple excerpts from the Book of Five Rings, and this was from medium.com, put these up, so thank you. It says, there are only so many ways to cut an opponent down. Whether we're taking our sword to an opponent or resolving a heated argument, there are only so many ways to get the job done. Musashi notes that practicality dictates 5 different sword positions. Anything beyond that is merely a flourish, unnecessary twisting and twirling. So this is actually more of a extrapolation of what he said. This isn't actually from the book, but this is somebody's interpretation of what happened in the book. We tend to overvalue novelty. It's exciting and drives innovation. But when our goals are clearly known, outcomes concrete, it's best to use the strategy that we know will work. Novelty only adds complication and introduces space for mistakes. So I could relate this to like, I'm going to knock you out with a tornado kick, or I'm going to do like a butterfly twist into a backflip, and then I'm going to leopard kick your face.
Make a 6-egg omelet, marry your wife, do my taxes, then I'm going to kill you.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Your dog's now my dog also, you know.
Dude, that's rough.
Yeah.
Knocks you out, you wake up, you're like, what's up, bro? Don't forget to drop your dog off later. It's like, what?
But you know, like it's that's how I think about that martially. But at the same time, you know, like if you're going into an argument or a conversation or the comment section or whatever it is with this like inorganic idea of like how you're going to systematically take this person down, it never often works that way. You should really just go straight for the point. It says you have tools and skills, often simple yet precise. Exactly what I just said. Make use of them. Rely upon them and get the job done. Forget about the fancy little extras that add nothing of real substance. Let go of the ego and just be effective. And I think that line is definitely the best part of it, because the ego is definitely where my anger and stuff comes from. It's where a lot of our issues come from.
Yeah.
And the ego is necessary, but it's something that you need to have the same way you need to have a good relationship with your shadow, you also need to have a good relationship with your ego. You know, you need to love them both. They're there for a reason, and that anger is then synthesized into that martial way of being.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because you're gonna use that, and you're gonna use that, and if you can control that and then use it as a tool, as opposed to letting, you know, like fire is a tool, but can also consume everything. Yet if you can harness the power of fire, next thing you know, we have the, you know, internal combustion engine and things like that. That's the harnessing of the power of fire.
And also s'mores.
God damn it, Sean.
S'mores.
He's not wrong, though.
Yeah,
this guy's got a good point.
he is not wrong. So then we did you want to say
Well,
something?
I was going to say, and again, maybe this is, when I say it, you can let me know if this is better to maybe we can talk about later in it, but very similar to kind of, as you say, again, controlling your emotions and understanding yourself, but also having a better understanding of the tools and the ways of combat, but not just combat in like the sense of fighting, but also the sense of combat, kind of like you're saying, of like an argument or like a verbal combat of like, we have different,
That's a good way to put it.
We have differing opinions. Jordan Peterson talks about it all the time. Like, how do we sort it out? You know, it's very similar where if you don't have control over your emotions, it's very, both in the fighting sense, you can get yourself hurt or hurt somebody else. Very similar in let's say a verbal argument where, let's say if you lose control of your emotions and you visibly get heated, then it starts ratcheting up, and then you guys are not talking anymore, and you guys aren't actually having a productive conversation. So being able to control your emotions, you can actually control the engagement. You know, the person who is the most emotionally under control has the most control of the engagement, basically. You know, because if you don't have those blinders on, your vision isn't getting
right.
closed by that kind of emotional
wrath.
Whoa. Yes.
Now, everybody fights with their partners. There's no getting around that. Everybody has arguments.
If you don't, you're single.
Yeah, basically. But like, so Jenny and I got into a blowout. Not like a blowout, but like we were fighting. We were pretty mad. And
Jenny
I came
suplex dead.
Yeah. She hit me with a frying pan. Very.
My God!
So much
Pandemonium!
abuse. So much. No,
Watch out!
I'm just kidding. I love her very much. But we fought before. You know, big surprise. And I realized at the tail end of the fight that I have this thing where like I need to get the anger out before it can become resolved, and then keep it inside, and then have that like
Perpetuate.
Okay, let's work on this. Okay, let's.
A little bit of bleed valve.
I'm in control of my emotions now. Okay, let's talk about this. Okay, that hurts. Let me process that and let me spit that out. And I would love to be able to be that way right away. I want to live there. I want to put the order the other way around, where I start there, and then if you continue to piss me off, then I explode. But like I don't understand why the pressure valve is just immediate, like like immediately, you know.
You just have to go to your front door and open it up and just scream outside it before every sentence.
A lot of it is me catching myself and like how I've been dealing with the stresses of life and like how I've not been vulnerable in a healthy way in order to let things out, and then it all kind of like bottles and builds and builds, and then I get into situations where maybe I didn't act right, or I wasn't the best person, or like maybe I should have had more control over myself or my emotions, you know.
Right.
But and that's also that like self-regulation, that like noticing that and wanting to understand that. But like that's what you're talking about, like that place where I find myself at the end. That's where Jordan Peterson is saying that's where we need to stay. That's where, as you evolve and as you use those tools, as you evolve, that's where you need to stay. Yeah. And that's my mission for myself now, is to like learn more about me, to learn how to be in that place more often and not let the anger and the fire be something that controls me and rules me.
Yeah.
Because the other thing for me that happens, I don't know if this happens to anybody else, but the anger is really just an expression of stress. And the stress gets me to a point where like I have things I should be working on, and then I put it off and I procrastinate because it's more, the thinking about getting starting and overcoming inertia then becomes stressful, and then I avoid that stress by doing things that are fun but
You're
don't matter.
Stressed out by the stress, and then it makes you more stressed.
And then next, it's been 6 hours. Yeah. It's been 6 hours, and I built a fucking like.
Just a mental shed of stress.
Like an obsidian farm in Minecraft for the past 3 hours. You know what I mean? Just fucking just this, this for hours and hours and hours, trying to distract myself from how I really feel, instead of like I need to talk to somebody about that. You know, I think it's why therapy is really important.
Yeah.
But again, there's ways to do it, and martial arts is kind of my therapy. And I find like I got sick and I was injured, and like my ankles were hurting. I really couldn't train as heavily as I was training for a couple of weeks. And then I got caught a cold, and I just like all of a sudden 3 weeks went by, and it was like I barely trained. Like, what the fuck? And then I realized that that's affecting me, because now my anger is like, because I don't have that therapeutic outlet of being in the martial arts. So it's like you got to find a plan that works for you. But there is no magic button. You have to stick with it.
Yeah.
That's how like all of these, like, I'm going to show you for just $20,000 how to fix your life in 30 days. Like, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
It's about adopting. It's like you can't go on a diet. You have to change your lifestyle. What's a diet?
Right.
You can do a diet for 30 days, but if your lifestyle is health and wellness, then you can do a diet for 30 days and try it out, because you're going to have the discipline to do it. But then at the same time, you're going to go back to what you were doing. Right. But if your habits are unhealthy and you do a diet for 30 days, there's no fucking point, because then you're going to go back to how you were, and you're going to put all the weight back on. That's why most people aren't consistent with weight loss.
That's the thing, again, with like we spoke about a few episodes ago, of starting the smaller steps of building that sustainable base to then kind of have as a launching off point to do kind of more ambitious improvement projects on yourself. Like, again, it's like, I'm gonna, that's why, again, you look at fucking, what is it, New Year's, gyms are filled with people, and then it's just back to the normal amount of people, because there's because they go from eating Cheetos and jerking off for 365 days a year to doing that and working out, and then
which is hard to do, because then you get the Cheetos all over it,
unless you want that,
unless you like that kind of thing.
My dick has been orange before.
Oh boy.
Don't tell them.
I did.
Well, Ed can't tell. You can't tell the difference between Cheeto and non-Cheeto, because you're a ginger.
Ed is a human Cheeto.
It's human. Everything is orange.
I am delicious.
And orange.
I hate that I said that just then. But so to be on your point, right? So have a defense without being defensive. It's important that we have the capability to defend ourselves, yet we should not be on the defensive at all times. It's an entirely different feeling to be attacked by others than it is to attack another. When we're on the defensive, we're anticipating hostility at any moment, which puts us in a spring-loaded, ready-to-attack state of mind. This is exactly what I was just talking about, right? Because then the stress puts you in fight or flight, and then instead of being able to just walk through life. You're constantly in fight or flight on this, like, bop, just like at any moment.
Just a ball of cortisol.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Someone asks
seriously.
if you want another Diet
Seriously.
Pepsi, you just stab them in the liver.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm so sorry.
To have an effective defense is a capability. To be defensive is an emotional state of being that can impair judgment and actually invite more hostility. I'm going to read that again. To have an effective defense is a capability. To be defensive is an emotional state of being that can impair judgment and actually invite more hostility. I need to tattoo that on the inside of my eyelids.
Oh, dude, same.
Be confident that you are able to deflect hostility as deftly as Musashi parries a blow, but do not dwell on and seek it out. Use your defense only in the very moment of an attack, allowing the rest of your time to be peaceful and conflict-free.
Just the rest of your life is metaphorically just chilling on a beanbag chair.
Yeah. You're just in a hammock.
Right, and again, I wasn't there. It's fabled that he defeated 61 men or so in open combat, one-on-one open combat. But he also took part in battles and strategized for battlefields and everything.
By today's standards, a poet, a free thinker, martial artist. Also by today's standards, a mass murderer. So he killed 61 people.
So definition.
Let's not gloss over that.
Well, culturally,
For sport.
but at the same time, culturally, things were different.
Dude, I'm totally joking.
I know, but it's also something else I wanted to talk about today. Like things are different. Things are very different. To go back to the comment section, we were talking about we love watching crazy shit on Reddit.
They do.
Oh
I don't.
boy, do we.
We love watching.
They watch
just
stuff and I sit on my phone.
Awful things on Reddit.
An anxiety factory. That's what my Reddit search history
100%.
is, just like the anxiety generator.
And I saw a video, and this is going to be a little controversial, so I understand if you guys don't want to use this segment. But, so I was watching a video the other day, and the long and short of it, where there were two police trying to corral an older man who was clearly on drugs, right? The gentleman, the past gentleman, pulls out, is yelling at the cops and says, "Fuck it, I'm gonna take you both on," and then pulls out a knife and lunges at the other officer, who then tases him as he's running back, and the tase does nothing. So then they put 4 rounds in him, and I'm pretty sure he died. And it's like, the comment section was loaded with people being like, "This is why we need social workers and not police officers." And it's like, wait a minute, what? Because all the cops were saying to the guy initially was like, "Can we talk to you? Can we walk with you? Let's take you home. What are you doing out here? How can we help you? What can we do for
They
you?"
didn't just say stop resisting and ran him over with a cop car.
Yeah. And the guy's just screaming. And there was also comments about how he would have got shot sooner if he was a different race and stuff like that. And it's like, you don't know because you're not there. First and foremost, and second of all,
also that didn't happen.
Yeah, and you're exactly. You're just talking in hypotheticals, and that's a lot of what happens.
The world
too,
of the
is
internet.
People go in the comment section and they talk hypothetical. They talk shit in hypotheticals, and then they react to those hypotheticals, and that shapes their view of the world. And there are so many people that think this way. You know.
It's an imaginary scenario, dude. And it's especially with cops too,
Yeah, but at the same time, like, how is a social worker going to handle being lunged at with a knife?
Yeah, that's what I said before. It's like, in that scenario, like, don't get me wrong, I'm sure that there are scenarios that hypothetically can be either diffused or better mitigated with either less force or, again, with the intervention of a social worker. But like I said to you guys before, like, what is going to happen in that sense? They're like, he's got a knife, get the social worker. And then they just put the social worker in front of them like a body shield. And it's just like, what do you think is going to happen? Like,
to play devil's advocate, the point that they were making is that a social worker would have understood how to de-escalate the situation before that individual got so ramped up that they pulled out a knife and jumped at the cop. And it's like,
that's also
maybe. Yeah, maybe. That's the
maybe
because in theory, what they're saying is that well, but that's the thing though, is like, even in that video, if you have cops that are like, "Hey man, let's talk. What's going on?" That's what I'm saying. Like, they didn't like run up and they're just like, "Stop resisting," and they just like, they're like, "Hey man, like, how can we help? What's going on?" Like proper response. And then he's like if a social worker did that and there was no cops there, and they go, "Okay, now it's charcuterie board time," and then you start stabbing people. It's like, what do you expect? What do you expect?
Turn you into pastrami.
Yeah, what do they expect to like? It's just there is a certain level of, I think, necessary compassion in the sense of wanting interactions to be less violent and to have better outcomes. Everybody wants that. But the issue is there's also a disconnect in the sense of like, if like the idea that like, oh, if there was a social worker there, that man who was clearly on drugs, who was already being aggressive to pretty peaceful interaction, was not going to pull out a knife, is kind of detached from reality in the sense of what you know about the facts of what happened. So it's like, at a certain point, you have to meet force with force. At a certain point, that's kind of that's the understanding again of combat and also just general violence. Like they have like, hey man, like it's two ends of the spectrum. It's either like, oh, I'd fight, why don't you fight more? I'd kick the shit out of that guy at the mall. It's like, first of all, no, you wouldn't. Then there's the other end of the spectrum for like, hey man, just like talk, man. And it's like, no, sometimes talking is not what's necessary. You need to understand kind of the full spectrum of what potential interactions can happen based off of like the full spectrum of people and how they interact with you. It's not, and that's kind of what's interesting with this here, where it is having that good balance of being fully ready in the sense of having the tools at your disposal to cause harm in self-defense if necessary, but having also the integrity, the self-knowledge, and the emotional control that comes with having all of those tools to relegate yourself to a peaceful state until necessary. So you're not in that, because, but that goes directly back to what I was saying about even having an emotional argument. If you're in that defensive state, you're going to invite and attract the other person. Be like, oh, well, fuck you, and then it's just nuke button. And you guys are just like this, and you're not, and nothing productive happens, and it's just unnecessary combat. It's damage. There's no need to have that damage all the time.
When it comes to those interactions, though, the end of the road is the same place, no matter who the participants are. If something divulges into violence, that's where you end up. You end up somebody trying to cause harm to another individual, and you think about like who's more prepared for when things reach the end of the road, for when things have officially fallen apart, and now it's time for violence. Who is prepared for that? I just don't, like, social workers cannot do that. Like, so yes, there is utility in the de-escalation, and it's functional, and it happens all the time. And
it should be prioritized.
Right, yeah, it works, but
the same way they have police negotiators, perhaps they could have social workers that show up to like domestic violence calls and stuff like that with the police.
They do that. Like my wife is a social worker, so she deals with stuff like this all the time. Not all the time, not like knife wielding people, but talking people down from an edge in a crisis.
Scar across her face.
No. I mean, she talking people down is an important skill, but like it doesn't always go well. Like the end of the road is the end of the road, and if you're not prepared to get a little grimy, that you're going to be a victim, and if somebody's trying to victimize you and you're not prepared to fend them off, then that's what you become. You become a chalk outline, which is not great.
And I also think too, again, this is very similar in. I think this kind of also alludes to the point of like usually people who have either fought or in combat sports or trained in martial arts are usually either avoiding conflict or quicker to diffuse. If someone's like, because shit that's happened to any of us. We're like, hey man, what's up? And you're just like, yeah, cool, bro. Like, very cool. Because it's, and because it's.
Me when I was in Ireland.
Yeah.
I still smoked at the time when I was in Ireland, and I was smoking a cigarette on the side of the road, and this like Cockney English guy.
Just an English guy.
Well, he was an English guy in Ireland. Big surprise. And he had a few of his friends, and it was like so like 2000. It wasn't 2005, but it was like like 2005 like BBC television. Like he's like just like but he's got like the big puffy coat on. You know what I mean?
Top gear.
yeah. And he's like give me a fucking cigarette, mate. And I'm like this is my only one. He's like, you got more? Give them to me. And I'm like it was literally my last one. And I'm like I literally don't have more. I don't have any more. And I'm not going to the store to buy you another one.
I think you can do that.
Yeah, and he's like give me another. I'm like, this is literally my last one. I'm not like, you want it, And he's like trying to push me, and I was like about to have my knee surgery.
Yeah,
I was having my knee surgery like the 2 weeks after I got back from that trip. Yeah, I was like, rough. I'm like, this guy probably has a knife. I'm like, I'm not even dealing with this. And I just backed up, and I looked at his girlfriend that was with him, and I was like, can you handle this situation? Like, can you just like get him away?
Yeah. It's like pull his leash.
And I think she was almost a little nervous that I wasn't like petrified. But like she's like, come on, let's go, let's get out of here. And I'm like, listen, I'm visiting this country. I did not come here for this shit.
Yeah.
And he eventually like angrily walked away, but he was looking for a fight. And now, could you imagine had I let that escalate?
Yeah.
Right.
Like, fuck you. What are you doing? You know, like
Yeah,
I'm like
it's just it's
It could have gone any way, and
Yeah.
people get killed accidentally in fights. You know,
Oh,
you
dude.
you could lose your footing, hit your head on the sidewalk, and then you pass away, and it's over. And it's not that is not worth your life.
And that's the thing too is again is through martial arts is having a better understanding and control of your like ego and egoic tendencies and outlashes, because ego is one of the main ways that can lead to unnecessary confrontation and violence. So like if you have control over that, someone's like, you're a fucking pussy, and you're just like,
Yeah.
cool, man.
Cool.
Like it doesn't matter, because it's like, because again, you know, yes, there is a certain self-confidence and ego in the sense of practically, like when someone says that to you, to be like, hey, I know that I can defend myself, and I know that like I'm not scared of you in that way.
Yeah.
Or even if you're like, this dude's pretty big, you're like, yeah, but you know, like this guy's getting like this guy will get hurt too. Like if we fight. So it's like, so that there's that part of it, but it's also being like, yeah, I know when I fought with ego in the school, you know, or you have that, you have that moment where
you fight with anger and then you get knocked out.
where you have that moment where you swing, and they're just like, ooh, and you're like, oh god, and you're just like, you're getting ready for it.
Yeah.
They're just like, you know, our teachers are like, all right, cool, man, whatever you want to do, and they're just like, bah, 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 bah. They just like, they beat the shit out of you, and you're like, you can't, you realize from real like nervous system experience of like, hey, if I do that, I'm gonna get hit. It's like, you know, you're like a fucking beat dog sometimes, where you do something, you're like, oh, someone, you know, your teacher pulls out a broom, and you're like,
It's all very Pavlovian.
But-
yeah.
yeah, it is,
Yeah,
it is.
But without that, I would not have the auto-regulation that I have in order to fix my shit.
Dude, and without that too, if we just had the training, we would be out of control.
Oh yeah.
Out of control.
yeah.
We'd be out of
I
control.
mean, he'd be creating monsters instead
Yep.
of spiritual warriors.
That's why teaching martial arts. I'm not going to speak like I'm some big teacher, but I have at least from being a student and doing some teaching, have a much better understanding of the level of responsibility that like Seagung and our teachers have in creating, and why he puts so much stress, and why he is so careful about who he allows in, who he gives certain ranks, who gets into who gets a black sash, who kind of gets into that circle, and who just gets to continue to be a part of the school and be in that community and benefit from it, and and also put their energy back and interact with it, is because, you know, you're basically putting people, especially if they're trained, you know, you're putting a loaded gun in their hand, and if they leave there with no morals, they're just like, you know, you're just covering their finger in vegetable oil and putting a blindfold on them and giving them roller skates, and they're just like, you know, it's not good. It can really, especially with like younger kids. Again, we talked about that last time of like, you know, there are few things worse and more out of control and mean than like middle school children.
The worst.
It's like you give like a 14-year-old kid like a black belt, some training, no morals at all, who's a little bit bigger, he'll beat the shit out of kids.
Yeah.
Like badly.
I've seen it.
Yeah.
It's
It's not good.
That's a bad time.
It's not good.
And even as a statement towards like the attitude of our teachers, like I strive to be Sifu Nick Mello. Like that man is just like, oh, all right, you know, like just chill and like, but also a weapon. Also, God forbid, Sifu Nick decides that he needs to hurt you in that moment. Like, but he's just so cool and chill and awesome, and it's like, how could you not take away from that instructor of just like a lesson of character? You know,
and there is, and just as a quick aside, there is, of course, in general, merit to the idea of like, hey, like, you know, if you've fought and you've gotten in the ring, you have more experience with fighting. Of course, that's like A to B common fucking sense.
Yeah, common fucking sense.
Of course.
Because you also have a person in front of you who's trying to kill you.
But just thinking that and not having any perspective outside of that also shows a lack of being exposed to actual martial arts. Where again, like you look at someone like Sifu Nick, or Sifu, who like, you know, like haven't fought professionally in that sense, but in training with them, seeing them apply technique and fight.
Yeah.
Well, I just mean not like you like
not in the UFC or anything like
in the
that.
UFC,
right, or like fighting professionally in that sense. But like you watch them move, you feel them you feel them like hit you and grab you and manipulate your body and fight and move, and you're like, okay, so there's clearly a disconnect between like, it can't just be if you haven't fought professionally, you don't know how to fight, or you don't know that your stuff works. And then when you look at people like that, you're like, man, these people could like legitimately cause like a lot of damage to somebody if they needed to. Like they just they're again, there's even that disconnect where on the one hand that original thought has merit of like, yeah, of course, if you have fight experience in that sense, you have a better understanding of what works and what doesn't work in combat and how to hurt somebody. But then without that training experience, you don't realize that there's nuance to that. You know?
Yeah, it's
there's nuance to that.
People think that the only way to learn how to really do stuff is like, remember that scene in Black Dynamite when Michael Jai White has all the dudes coming at him and he's literally just like plowing through it. Yeah, the phone rings. Ain't nobody interrupt me when I'm doing my kung fu. Fucking best scene. But like he's just literally just like it's fake, but it's like it's
it's glorious.
Like, kapow, kapow, like really beating the shit out of people. People think that's the only way you can train and actually become effective is by like really hurting people. But then like you have nobody to train with.
Dude,
you got nobody to train with.
That's a one time that I have to say that martial arts comments actually make sense is when you watch a lot of videos on Instagram and YouTube of like hard sparring in gyms and everyone's just like, man, I'm seeing a lot of like 6-month fighters in here, as in like that's all their career's gonna be. Because I'm watching, I'm just like, dude, this is all ego, and it's just like, dude, it's just brain damage. It's like it's not practical to consistently train like that.
One
it just
of the
isn't.
things we're going to do a future episode on this topic, actually, I just bought a book. I'm not going to say the name of it because I got to get through it. But I wanted to talk about CTE eventually. I just want to do a little bit more research before I actually like bring it up. But to complete the point about police and how this all ties in as well, you know, I don't want to just glaze over it the way we kind of did. Like the point being is that it is important for all facets. And then again, like, you know, once we got rid of, and I know there's reasons for it, and I know I'm not educated a lot on this topic, but like we got rid of institutionalized mental health and gained a homelessness crisis.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So where do we draw the line? And why are we and I feel like a lot of the discourse about topics just like this starts in the comment sections because we all live our lives online now.
Yeah.
We all live our lives online. We're all addicted to our phones and addicted to our computers, and we're on TikTok and we're on YouTube and we're everywhere, and people feel the need to get engaged, and they think that arguing with people online, you can apply all of this that we're talking about to the comment section and to the keyboard warriors to either ignore them or to shut them down, you know? And I think that when it comes to having healthy discourse, being able to disagree with people, because I know there's going to be people that listen to this show that are on the right, there's going to be people that are on the left, there's going to be people from other countries that have completely different opinions. And, you know, we're talking to all of you. There's nothing wrong with any of you. There's nothing wrong with anybody. Differing opinions doesn't make you a bad person. Being pro-police doesn't make you a bad guy. Being anti-police doesn't make you a bad guy. It's you have your feelings for a reason. And we experience it in a very niche way in the martial arts community with keyboard warriors talking shit. But at the same time, when it comes to these very tense political topics that are dividing our country so greatly right now, you know, and it's funny because like we looked at like things like Brexit, and we talked so much about like what was going on over there, and we didn't realize the same thing is happening over here, the same thing, and the country's being torn apart. The country's being torn apart by corrupt politicians, and we're all letting it happen. You know, we're all letting it happen. We were just talking about the whole, what is it, FTX? The FTX collapse.
Yeah.
And then we found out that FTX was, you know, illegally laundering money to the Ukraine. And then the Ukraine was laundering that money back through the Democratic Party.
Well, no, it was basically the Democratic Joe Biden administration. You know, they donate money to Ukraine. Ukraine invests in the FTX, and FTX donates that money back to Joe Biden. It's all on paper. It's all out in the open.
You know, and then, but at the same time, you know, where if you're against these parties or against that administration, you're immediately, you know, QAnon Trump supporter. And it's like you get roped in, and then you spend so long like boxing and dodging and weaving and fighting your way out of people's
like perceptions of you,
perception and assumptions about you because of how you feel about certain topics, and they don't see you as a whole individual, and they go, "That's interesting. Why do you feel that way?" You know, we can't talk. We're so quick, just like I am. We're so quick to like and anger.
Right.
We're so quick to that as a people and as a society. And then for people like me who are very susceptible to the energy of everything, it's like I feel that a lot. I take that in, you know, and for a living I take on people's problems. You know?
Well, that's the thing too, is is, perfect example of, you bring up, and we've spoken about, and we all probably, we all have people like this in our lives of like, you bring up an emotionally charged political topic, and like, why do they react that way? Because it's emotionally charged. They're emotionally invested in a way that's not productive.
They're emotionally compromised.
Right.
You could even say.
Yes, exactly. And we're all
Compromise
mentally,
is the
our mental health is severely compromised by the internet and by the technology that we have in front of us, which is also why it's so important to just like put the phone down for a couple hours and be in class.
It's like we were running out of fuel, and then just like TikTok came, and then they just like removed the wings of the plane.
Exactly.
It was just
it's just the wing just blows off, and you're like, tailspin. Woo.
There's just TikTok just put like.
Did you just DuckTales me? DuckTales. Woo.
It's not DuckTales. It's Tailspin. Was it? Oh, is it DuckTales? That's DuckTales. What was the Tailspin theme song?
I don't even know what you're talking
Tailspin. Woo. I don't know.
That's what it is now.
It's just the same thing.
My brain is just putting 90s cartoons, 80s cartoons. They're all
TikTok was just
up.
like putting like 2 rockets on 2 different ends and sides of the plane wings. Just like
sounds like a fun trip to me. But so the point being is that there's ways to handle it. There's better ways to handle it, and if we adopted a little bit of this self-regulation, auto-regulation, trying to be better people, and especially as the martial artists within the community, being the community leaders instead of being so divided. I mean, I see a lot of like hardcore right in the martial arts community. I see a lot of hardcore right in the martial arts community. And we also tend to be a little bit more spiritual and a little bit open to the esoteric because of the ancient practices and a lot of what we do. And I think that makes some people a little bit more susceptible to conspiracy theories as well. And it's dangerous. It's not to say that everything is a conspiracy theory and that we should be using conspiracy, but there's some stuff that like oh, that's interesting. Like maybe society, maybe there was an ancient culture and an ancient civilization that had advanced technology and all that kind of stuff. All the Graham Hancock and Randall Carlson work. Maybe that's that's a conspiracy theory worth looking into. You know what I mean? And then the conspiracy isn't that there's fucking lizard people running the government secretly. It's that you have an archaeologist who's still alive, who his entire life's work and all his books that he's still making money on, and the classes that he's teaching are all based on research that he did. And then you're going to come out with new research that tells him that the classes that he's been teaching have been wrong for the past 50 years.
They didn't think Troy was real. The city of Troy. They thought
it was just in the Iliad, right?
They thought it was just in the book, and then they found that it was a real city. They're like, oh, this is all the stuff we're seeing here is from the book. And they're like, oh, I guess it's real. But people for decades were just like,
but the rest is still made up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, listen.
Or those ancient maps that have Antarctica on it. But Antarctica wasn't discovered until like 1800 something.
Graham Hancock talks about that, the Perry Reese map.
That is crazy.
Definitely watch Ancient Apocalypse on Netflix.
I gotta fucking watch that. They were just back on the Joe Rogan podcast.
Yeah, I've already watched it all. It's amazing.
So good.
But okay, we're getting off topic. But again,
on the service road.
Again, so maybe some things that are conspiratorial in a way are not so bad to look into, and other things are pretty dangerous. You know what I mean? There's a balance point, and unless you are wise enough to kind of be able to filter out your own bullshit, your own internal emotional attachment to your ideas, your beliefs, and what you've learned, and be able to continually empty your cup, not just to your teacher to teach you a different way to throw a punch, but empty your cup to the rest of the universe and just let it be continually overflowing with new information, right? When something overflows, the old is constantly leaving and it's constantly being refilled with new, And so to tie it all together, I was kind of reading through this while you guys were talking because I don't like to pay attention to you, and I felt like this would be. Well,
I mean, you can't
way.
Read, so this must have been.
Well,
funny.
Yeah, it's funny.
Waiting for us.
I'm looking at a screen and they're just whispering into my ear what to say. I can't actually read.
It doesn't know what words are.
Fun fact about me. But no, so it says focus on the sword, but on the heart and mind of the opponent. He's actually a ventriloquist, so he says it into my earpiece, and you don't see his mouth move. No, but it says focus on the sword.
Focus not on the sword.
Focus. No, it says fuck. Focus not on the sword.
Can you read or can you not fucking read?
Apparently, I can't fucking read.
It's like you were lying to me and I was lying to myself and thinking you can read, bro.
We got to get you a tutor. Some of Miss Darla's
party going on back here that Ed's not invited to.
Some of Miss Darla's canned peaches.
Ed's got some squatters on the back of his neck.
I leaned and hit the couch.
I know.
Focus not on the sword, but on the heart and mind of the opponent. Excuse me. In combat, do not watch your opponent's sword, hands, or feet. They carry out only the final action that your opponent has decided upon, which is funny when it comes to the context of fighting, because Qigong has told us that all the time, to look like right here or like right here.
Be very center, so you can kind of get a good
so you can
peripheral
see
of
everything.
everything.
Well, because if the body starts to turn, you know that this is going to get thrown. If this starts to turn, you know this is going to get thrown. If this starts to lift, you know this is going to get thrown. You know. But anyway, so in combat, do not watch your opponent's sword, hands, or feet. They carry out only the final action that your opponent has decided upon. Instead, look to your opponent's hearts and minds. Examine their actions closely. Understand the intent behind them, and ultimately their state of mind. Musashi talks about seeing and perception. To see is to notice only the immediate reality presented to you. To perceive is to seek understanding of why a person acted that way, how that reality came to be, and where it may lead. Perception allows us to see the story that is playing out and anticipate the next chapter. It gives us the ability to respond to circumstances before they happen. This isn't just appropriate for combat, but also for cooperation. Anticipate the needs of others and provide for them before they've even outwardly expressed such desires. The sway of the sword presents just one of many possibilities, while the color of the heart shows us the whole truth of a person. Right? So we can break that down and say, like, one action does not make the complete reality of an individual, right?
Right. So the same thing of like not just looking like at their left hand when they're fighting.
Right.
You're not getting the whole picture of what's happening.
Right. So you can take that as far as like the literal sense of fighting, but also like in confrontation and conversation and just taking care of the people that are around you, right? Or how to walk through life. On the surface, these lessons teach us how to find victory, how to beat our opponents and win our fights, but each of them, applied to the challenges we face and passed on to others, offers peaceful living. We will all encounter...
I just got him. I just pictured like it just says cough like in the article. So then
it's like Joe Biden being like, repeat the line. We will all encounter conflict in life, but it can almost always be guided to a productive end. Instead of escalating hostility, harm can be minimized. These skills allow us to hold valuable space for others and contribute to the nourishment of our communities. Who wrote this? Because I liked what they did. Where is
I think
we
it's...
got to scroll to the top.
Author?
I got it.
Ben Walker.
Ben Walker.
Thanks, Ben.
Yeah, thanks, Ben.
Where are we? Medium.com? Ben Walker.
It's a 4-minute read unless you're Ed, because you can't read.
It's about a 28-minute
It just has an infinity symbol next to it.
This took all day.
It's a loading bar.
It's the magic it's the magic of editing.
Ed spent this past week learning all the words.
We had to teach him.
I have to say, though, like, this speaks so much to, again, kind of I think what we allude to, which is kind of more of this, overarching view, and principle that, like, martial artists, I think we kind of need to kind of reclaim our kind of social responsibility in the sense of like if you are like leaving your training in the school and keeping it just for yourself, you're not training properly.
Right.
You're not training properly. If you're just like, I go, and again, if you want to be a hobbyist or you want to train to work out or to learn cool stuff, that's fine. But if you are a true martial artist and you are not carrying out the principles, the teachings, the practices that you've learned in interaction with other people, but also through emulating it through yourself, you're not training properly. So I just think that's a super important thing to understand. And again, him talking about, through learning these skills and especially learning the fundamental lessons of combat and aggression and understanding those things at face value and looking at them in the eyes, you have a much better handle on conflict and conflict resolution, the spectrum of conflict and what can happen, which then leads to your ability to better, temper the situation to lead to better outcomes. And you having that knowledge allows you to make more positive change. And that's what you have to kind of do. If you're in that space and you have that ability, again, it's kind of the Ben Parker, with great power comes great responsibility. It rings ever true. It's just, if you have the ability to Uncle Ben, I'm just thinking of that meme of just like the guy in the Spider-Man costume, just like at the supermarket, with just like holding like the Uncle Ben, like Uncle Ben's rice, just crying.
Yeah,
Anywho, but yeah, I think you know, taking more responsibility in your ability to make impactful change, and again having it's very easy to think that you don't have any actual impact in life if you're not in tune with what's happening. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, again, in us talking, the way you interact with people, like, who knows, like, the way you talk to somebody, everything, like, think about even something as small as, like you asking a cashier, like, how their day's going. And they're like, wow, that's really nice. You know, like realizing the impact of that those little things can have on people, and taking it to a broader spectrum of you being a martial artist, you having the confidence and understanding conflict resolution, you being able to defend yourself and defend others.
And then
Imagine
also sometimes exposes people for what they are, because then you ask them how they're doing and they're like, another one. You know what I mean? So like it also shows you sometimes how low people are. You know.
But then again, even you just being that light of asking people, interacting with people, having that confidence. Again, martial arts gives you that confidence of not only because of and knowing how to defend yourself, but also just confidence to move through life in a more impactful and kind of, you know, standing up straight with your shoulders back type way, which is what I think our society needs, is more upstanding people who will be like, that's not right. Hey, like, stop doing that.
Yeah.
And also not just in a defensive way, but also being able to have the confidence to step in and help, step in and defend. You know, it's super important. You know,
absolutely, 100%.
Super important.
You know, martial arts schools were the town square. They were in the town square.
Yep.
They were the cultural centers of the community, and we need to get back to that. And it's our responsibility to have the wisdom to stop the conflict, have it stop being left versus right, us versus them, and start realizing that we need to bring the community together regardless of what our opinions are and what our beliefs are. That everybody, regardless of how you feel about them, be they have, you know, Trump flags on the back of their giant, enormous pickup truck, or they have purple hair, 2 nose rings, and they identify as an amorphous blob. It doesn't matter. Those are the two complete the complete opposite ends of the spectrum. If we can get those through the martial arts, if we can get those two types of individuals to be able to have a conversation with each other and have civil discourse and talk about what they agree about first as opposed to what they disagree about, then we can change the world and we can make it a better place. Provided we don't get nuked, you know?
Probably don't all fuck it up.
Yeah.
If we don't do that, we got a chance.
Provided we don't get turned into shadows.
Yeah.
But anyway, thank you to all of our Instagram followers, and thank you to our listeners. Thank you to our Discord members. And this has been the Martial Mind Podcast.